Happy Craftmas! It is that time again. Time for me to make my hand-stitched calico ornament. I started doing this a few years ago. I like to buy these vintage kits. Most of them are by one brand called Yours Truly, but I've had a couple other brands here and there. These kits usually come with enough supplies to make 2 or 3 ornaments, and so my intention has always been to hand sew one of them, with the plan to go back and machine sew the rest at a later date when I want to just plow through a whole bunch. Last year I did make both ornaments from the kit by hand sewing. This year I don't know how many I'm going to do, but I actually have 2 kits. I chose this 3 sets of holiday candy kit. This one is from Yours Truly, and it has 3 candy canes and 3 lollipops. I also have this one, which is an identical kit with the same pieces of candy, except there's only one of each. Now, this one is not really branded. It does have an address for a company called Country Fair. However, the address is a P.O. box in Atlanta, Georgia, as is the address for Yours Truly. So I do believe these may actually both be made by Yours Truly, just marketed differently for whatever reason. I did open these a couple of years ago when I thought I was going to make them that year, but decided I wanted something simpler. But what I had discovered was that the fabrics are slightly different. So I want to do both kits at the same time, even if I'm not going to sew more than one of each piece of candy, so that I can mix and match the fabrics a little bit more. So join me for some cozy hand sewing. It is snowing today, and the cat is very entertained. I'm just gonna watch the snow for a minute if that's okay. Now I have opened these kits before. Hopefully everything is still here. We have clumsy fingers, 3 sticks, some batting, yarn and ribbon, and our fabrics. So this one has a gingham, a stripe, a large floral, a small floral, and some like clover design. So we got 5 fabrics here, and then we have the instructions. In here we have the instructions, which, come here, can't get my fingers to work today. Lo and behold, is exactly the same. Yeah. So I'm only going to need 1 set of instructions. We have our stick, yarn, and ribbon, batting, and this one only has 3 fabrics. We have a polka dot, a stripe, and a gingham. So it says cut all 5 or 3 fabrics into 8.5-inch strips of varying widths. Basically, we're going to cut these fabrics into strips. They are already as long as they should be. Sew those strips together until we have a square. Toby got hold of this one. When did he do that? It's got little tooth holes in it. So we'll use that one this year. I like mixing the 2 ginghams, but I think the stripes are just a little too close. They're not quite different enough. So I think I'm only going to use one of these this time around, with the narrowest about 1 1/4 and the widest 2 1/4. Whew, shaking. And that gives us 8 1/2 inches. I think this is how I'm going to want it. So I'm going to pin these two together, these two together, and these two together. I'm going to sew these 3 seams and then pin them together again and have 2 more seams to sew. And then we will do the next step. I have my square 8 1/2 by 8 1/2. I have pressed the seams all to the side, and I have traced my pattern pieces onto some spare bit of pattern paper so I don't have to cut this out. I started out stitching this with a straight stitch, which would have been fast and easy, but I decided to go ahead and do a back stitch instead, since I will be cutting into this patchwork and I wanted to give it a little bit more stability while I was working with it. The next thing that we need to do is fold the square in half diagonally, and we're going to place the candy cane on the seam and the circle up there.
I did this wrong again. It's gotta be inside. Okay, well. The instructions don't include a hanger for the lollipop, and I want one. So I tested out the ribbon, and there is just enough to make a bow and have this little tiny loop. So I'm going to insert this little tiny loop in the proper place. I've stitched them up. It is not my best work, but we're going with it. I got 3 more sets of these candies I can make in the future that I can improve on. I tried to put the hanger in. I don't think I got my opening centered with it. I tried to keep it straight, but it's not straight. So it's going to be a little bit of a travesty, but we're going to go with it. So the instructions say to cut the batting into strips, 1/2-inch strips, and stuff them in. So that's what we're going to do. Although it needs more right here. So my fingers just don't feel like they're working right. So I'm kind of struggling right now. I think that's as far as I'm gonna go on that one. All I need to do on this one is seam up the opening with a ladder stitch. And then this one, we're gonna get some glue, put the stick on and add a bow. And then this goes around it. My tacky glue is quite old. However, if I squeeze it to the top, like there's just enough. Don't think I can squeeze any out, but I can at least coat the end of my stick. Carefully stick it in where it needs to go. I found some felt glue that I think is still liquid. Are you liquid? It's liquid, but it won't like hold itself there. It's liquid, but I don't think it's sticky. All right, Elmers, come to my rescue. Oh, can't grab it. This is still wet, by the way. I apologize for the hum. It's either that or no fire. Thank you so much for joining me this Craftmas. As usual, there was so much more I wanted to share with you this Craftmas, and the stars just did not align for me this year. Hopefully next year will go a little bit better. Maybe I can even start a little sooner. We'll see. However, I'm still pretty pleased with what I was able to accomplish. So I really hope you enjoyed these craft projects. Don't forget that last year's Craftmas is together in the playlist with this one, because really it doesn't matter what year they were from. The crafts are already old. And my calico ornament collection is growing, despite the fact that I don't know when I'm ever going to get a tree to hang them on, because Toby chews on them. He eats the trees. They are not my best hand stitching work. I don't know what was going on today. I had some shakes, but mostly I was just having some dexterity issues getting my hands to do what I wanted them to do. But you know what? We all have issues some days. We don't always feel our best. Our bodies don't always work as we expect them to. It happens sometimes, and we just make do. And that's okay. They are handmade, and that's kind of the appeal of a handmade ornament, or any handmade object, is that the maker can show through. The good news is I do have 3 more sets of these candies that I can make in the future. I also want to give a big shout out and thank you to Amber for becoming my first Ko-fi supporter. Your generosity, it really means the world to me, and I just want to thank you so much. That's it for this Craftmas. I hope you are having a wonderful December and have a lovely holiday season. I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.